So was there like a defining moment for you that felt like, yep, this is the right track?
Any day now, I'll have that defining moment.
Okay,
No.
great. So I still remember like approaching the firehouse, like, I don't even think I'm allowed to be on the premise. And I just walked in there, this little 7-year-old with a notepad. Excuse me.
That's why I love this podcast, because it's instead of saying, oh, let's take an aptitude test and find out what you're good at and then track you into career. It's why don't you hear these stories and see which one resonates with you?
Hello and welcome to Good Job New Mexico. I'm your host, Stacey Johnston, and welcome to Season 2 of Good Job New Mexico. And thanks for coming back. If you're brand new, thanks for joining us. We have some really exciting guests coming up this season, and we're doing things a little bit different this season. We're having guest co-hosts come on with me. And first and foremost is Gavin Pantoja. He's our Deputy Division Director for Unemployment Insurance. Hi, Gavin.
Hey, hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. First things first, I love what you guys are doing. It's amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you. And we got to talk with our Cabinet Secretary, Sarita Nair, this time, which was great.
It was awesome to get some insight to what she was thinking, how she was raised. What even got her here was amazing. So absolutely, it was great.
And she is a wealth of knowledge in terms of music. I feel like she knows everything when it comes to music.
Absolutely.
Right?
You know what took me back is you wouldn't think that some of the music she listened to was that music that she chose.
Yeah.
You kind of get a little bit more respect for somebody when you kind of find out, like, okay, I can relate to this person a little bit more now.
For sure. She's just so easy to talk to, so knowledgeable. She's making huge impacts here at the department, and you'll hear more about her path and how she got to be Cabinet Secretary.
It's never a roadmap that you think that you want to become. It's where you end up in the end, and she's doing an amazing job.
Don't you think that's kind of typical of some people, Gavin, of like where they end up? It's like, I had no idea way back when that I was going to be here, but then somehow things happen and then they just end up in that spot. But when you hear the whole story from our perspective, I feel like, yeah, that makes logical sense how you got there. But maybe for the person living it, it's like, I felt like I was a zigzag line to get there.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm definitely, I don't even know if I'm a zigzag line. I'm a zigzag, straight line, zigzag from that straight line. So I'm all over the place myself too. So to end up where I'm at, I feel blessed in life to be here.
For sure. And in the episode, you did mention in your aptitude test for what are you going to be when you grow up, you said military. If you had gone that direction, Gavin, which branch of military would you have chosen?
Navy. That's where all my cousins had gone into. So I have a lot of family that went into the military. And I decided to stay to go to college because I was the first in my whole family, first to graduate from college. There's just a time I think when I was in college, like I should have gone to the military because I wasn't really prepared for college fully as I should have been.
Well, you know what? I knew you were going to say Navy because you're tall. My uncle also did that. So tall. But I just think about the submarines and the Navy and
gosh,
like the head clearance. Like that's very
I've
scary.
given myself probably more concussions just being on any ship, to be honest with you. Now that you say that, maybe it was good that I didn't go into the Navy.
Right. You protected your head.
Absolutely.
Good job. Well, anyway, Gavin, thank you so much for being our guest co-host on this. Really appreciate your input and your questions and just having you here.
Thank you for thinking of me to even be a part of this. I'm very thankful for that. So thank you so much.
Of course. So without further ado, please enjoy Cabinet Secretary Sarita Nair. Welcome, Cabinet Secretary. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being with us today. We also have a co-host with us today, our Deputy Division Director of Unemployment Insurance, Gavin Pantoja.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invite.
So today we're talking all about being a Cabinet Secretary, the road that led you here to be Cabinet Secretary, and then kind of what's next for you. But honestly, when you were little, did you think, yes, I'm going to be a lawyer and then I'm going to go into politics and then I'm going to be a Cabinet Secretary and lead the state and initiatives? I mean, it's a lot.
No. I oddly was sort of very focused on being rich when I was little. I was like, I want to be rich.
Yeah. Did you play the game MASH?
MASH, no.
Oh, did you play that?
No.
What? I feel like that's all we did when we were kids. So you make a little box and then at the top you put MAS. That's kind of like where you're going to live, a mansion.
Oh my gosh, I think I did play this.
Yeah, a shack. That's what you're going to do. And then on the side, you put, for me, like the boys that you like. And then in the bottom, you do like the job that you're going to have and then the car that you really wanted. And then you do this little swirly circle.
Oh, it's not one of these things, though.
No. And then when you
those
say
too.
stop, and then you count how many lines, and then you go around. And when you land on that, then you circle what it is.
Oh,
that was a
wow.
really long explanation. Definitely cut that out.
No, but we played Monopoly, and
Yeah.
we had a game called Payday, and we also had a game called Masterpiece, where you bid on pieces of art, and then there was like a secret value card that went on the back. So you could pay, $400,000 for $1 million painting, or you could pay $1 million for a forgery.
For sure. Or even like the Game of Life. Did you play that one?
I did. I hated that. But
Oh,
yes.
man. Because we always got excited when we got lawyer because it was like, whoosh, we're making a lot of money because we're a lawyer.
I was always like just having kids. And I was like,
That was
happening?
my problem. That was my problem.
You had to get 2 cars.
The kids kept getting in the way.
Yeah, those little pink pegs. I was like, I don't have room in this vehicle for you.
Okay, so rich was what we were motivated on. And then first job.
Very first job was selling flowers. My best friend's aunt and uncle had a flower place called Johnston's Greenhouse, actually, Johnston's. And they would have us set up a little table across the street from a cemetery to sell flowers to people who had not been thoughtful enough to bring flowers. And the worst day on that job was always Mother's Day. They would tell us to upsell, and I wasn't comfortable
For sure.
with that. But I also now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, if you don't, as a flower store, a little locally owned flower store, before the days of flowers.com, if you don't make money on Mother's Day, you're going to be struggling for the rest of the summer because people don't really buy flowers in the summer because there are flowers out. And so I appreciate it a little more as an adult. But as a kid, I was like, this is horrible. Even earlier than that, my mom, when I was very little, like 6 and 7, my mom worked at Carnegie Mellon University, and graduate students would pay me to go run across all the printers were in one building. And so I would run across campus and pick up their giant printouts and bring them back, and they'd give me the change in their pocket. And I loved that so much.
Is that what made you want to become rich after running out and picking up copies? Where did this come from? I'm really stuck on that conversation.
I don't know. I don't know why. I think it was just the era, early 70s. There was a lot of materialism, and it just seemed like it was important.
So when it comes down to like those kind of things, you're talking about like your family business. What's your like favorite and family like traditions?
The end of every year, we do best of lists. So what's the best book you read? What was your favorite record? What was the best concert you went to? We kind of go in through all those.
I love that. I want to do that.
That sounds awesome.
I know.
So concerts. What's your favorite concert?
Of my entire life? Or of the year?
Best concert you've ever seen?
I went to a college where we had a thing called Spring Fling, and it was a pretty small college, but for some reason, I think it was my sophomore year, Parliament Funkadelic came and played. And it was raining and it was dark and the sun came out. I mean, the mothership basically landed. They played for 3 hours. It was just an amazing, amazing show. So I always think of that as basically the best of my life. But I also, a close runner-up was I saw Gorillaz in San Francisco. Because it was in San Francisco, everybody was there. And it was a music festival. So De La Soul was there. All of the Far Side was there. Little Sims, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Little Dragon. So it was like every guest feature, the guest was there and did the verse. Pusha T, like it was insane. So it was a really great show.
Well, you're talking about the Funkadelics. I already have it in my head going, boom, boom, boom. I'm already dancing to it without you telling me about that stuff. That's awesome.
For your parents, what did they do?
My mom was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and eventually she became vice provost there. She was the first woman to hold that job. And then my dad was an engineer, first at Westinghouse, and then as they got bought and sold, he moved to Curtiss-Wright, but he worked in the nuclear industry. In fact, he helped design the casks that transport the waste to Carlsbad. To WIP.
So it sounds like both of your parents were pretty heavy into education. And was that a big influence on you as well?
It was. I mean, it was a pretty stereotypical Indian American family. That was all very important and just assumed. Like it didn't even have to talk about it because you knew what the expectation was.
So did you already know going into college what you were going to pursue in your degree?
I didn't. I really didn't. I chose my college because I wanted to do economics. And then I took micro and macro economics and I barely passed them and they were so boring. I thought I can't possibly imagine doing this. In my senior year, after all the water was under the bridge, I took a history of economics class and did really well in it. And the professor said, "Why didn't you ever think of majoring in economics?" And I said, actually did. We talked about how it's such a mistake to try to teach kids things that go on a graph before you teach them the human story of how economics affects our everyday life and what it actually means on a very human level. And so I think if I could turn back time, I might go back and do economics again. But I did African American studies. It was my major, and I loved that too.
But that makes a lot of sense for somebody to be more invested in the why before they understand like the how. I mean, I think that's why I liked history so much, is because I wanted to hear the stories, and that's why I like these kind of conversations.
Say that's why I love this podcast, because it's instead of saying, oh, let's take an aptitude test and find out what you're good at and then track you into career. It's why don't you hear these stories and see which one resonates with you.
For sure. Did you have to do one of those tests in like middle school or something?
Yeah.
And what did it say?
Farmer.
Oh, okay.
And when I asked why, because it was a shock.
Yeah.
I still remember this so clearly in 4th grade. And the teacher said, your scores indicate that you don't do well with authority. And farmers really, have a lot of freedom because they're basically their own boss. And I was like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
That didn't really go anywhere because, But
sure. So maybe like the military wouldn't have been for you,
right.
Kind of a thing.
Did you take those tests?
I did. Mine was firefighter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Again, I don't feel like that matched me very well. They made us go to somebody in that profession and interview them. This was like 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
I know, isn't that weird? So
That's
I still remember like approaching the firehouse, like, I don't even think I'm allowed to be on the premise. And I just walked in there, this little 7-year-old with a notepad. Excuse me?
They didn't help you with that interview? Like they didn't say, here's the firehouse and here's the connection?
No, they were just like, go find somebody and interview them and come back with a written up story, an essay on it.
Oh my gosh.
But they were very nice. Very nice. They were at the Firehouse on Academy. If you're in Albuquerque, that's where I went. Very nice. And thankfully, there wasn't a call while I was there. So they were very attentive to all my questions.
I'm glad you had a good experience.
I know, right?
I'm glad where you're at today, and I'm glad where you're at today. Mine was military.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mine was military. It wasn't a rhyme or reason. It's not anything I've ever thought of. And I look back and I thought to myself, maybe I should have gone to the military. It might have helped me a little bit more in life. I think I was immature to start school. When getting out of high school, I was not prepared for college.
Sure.
It took us several years for me to get prepared for that.
So college, going back to like just what was the decision to go into the law?
Yeah, so after college, I worked for a couple of years in international development. And then I drove cross country with my best friend just for fun. She was getting ready to go to law school, actually. And I had finished my job and just really fell in love with New Mexico. So I applied to graduate school sort of as an excuse to come back out west and ended up at UNM and got my master's degree in natural resource planning. And then while I was in that program, I decided to go straight to law school and went to UNM Law.
So was there like a defining moment for you that felt like, yep, this is the right track and I know exactly where I want to go? Or did it kind of feel like I'm going with the flow and we'll just see what happens?
No, any day now, I'll have that defining moment.
Okay, great.
I think I just try to stay open to what's going to happen. And then usually the dots get connected after. And I'm like, oh, that all made sense. Actually, it didn't really feel like it at the time. So when I was in planning school, I took a couple of classes that involved lawyers and law school faculty that kind of encouraged me to go that way. And also so many of the natural resource issues, especially in the American West, they end up in court. So I kind of wanted to have that background. But then coming out of law school and my clerkship, the doors just didn't open for me in natural resource law or water law. And so I ended up working as a corporate lawyer, which turned out to be wonderful, and I loved it. And as a result of that, got a lot of business training and experience. And so then when I went into public service and my first job was at the auditors, that turned out to like, oh, this all makes sense because I actually know how to read a financial statement and I understand all these words. And I've advised companies as they've gone through audits. So yeah, my life's always been a little bit like, this seems like nonsense. And then in the rearview mirror, it makes sense.
I like that little tie back though for like water or environment to the farmer.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true. Well, and now, as you know, we do a lot of work around water workforce. I just gave a a talk about that earlier this week. And so it's one of the great things about working in workforce is that you get to touch every industry, every discipline. So that's been a really nice tie back too.
Are there any cool industries you're seeing right now that people just don't know about, but it's getting ready to happen here in the state of New Mexico?
Well, a lot of talk about the quantum workforce, which please don't ask me to get into details about what that means. But somebody explained it to me as, we keep making technology smaller. And most people have probably heard of nanotechnology, and quantum is sort of the next step smaller. And so there's a lot of excitement around that. There's some grants, both that UNM and other partners have gotten and that they've applied for. So that's really exciting. And then aerospace. I think people think of astronauts in the spaceport without realizing that there's an entire world of aerospace that relates to clean energy, that relates to telecommunications, and that there's a full range of occupations within that include technicians and, folks who are doing skilled labor, all the way up to the PhDs and the scientists. So there's really something for everyone in the aerospace field. So I think that's something we're also trying to bring awareness to.
I think we've all had mentors in our lives. Outside of your parents, like who were your mentors to guide you? Because you have a lot of steps there.
Yeah, I've been so fortunate to have wonderful mentors. So my first job out of college in international development, there was a woman named Len Ishmael. She was just this dynamo and taught me so many things, and also just confidence. I remember, she was this like working woman, just ridiculously competent, powerful. And I went to her house once and she cooked dinner, and I kind of expressed surprise that she cooked. And she just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why shouldn't I be good at everything?"
Wow. Yeah. I was like, why not?
I love you. And I'm not good at most things, but I still carry that spirit of like, why not me?
Sure.
Kind of thing that she taught me. And then when I clerked at the Court of Appeals for Judge Lynn Pickard, she was also a brilliant, amazing woman. And she enforced 24-hour inbox rule and, a lot of basic work discipline. But she also said, in the court, we're in public service, and what the public needs from us is the timeliness of our decisions. So this is not about us sitting in a building in Santa Fe thinking about the law. This is about us giving certainty to people who have been fighting over something for a long time. And then in my law practice, Hank Kelly was my mentor, and we were an odd pair. He was a 60-something-year-old, white guy, old school lawyer, corporate lawyer. But he took a chance on me and, really made my whole legal career. And he also had a lot of good basics that he kind of instilled in me. But the one that I always remember is early on, we were working on a deal involving actually a bank here in New Mexico. And he said, "I need you to mother this deal." And at first I was a little offended because I was like, would you say that to a man,
Mm-hmm.
But then I really thought about it and, what it means to be a mother, right? You are nurturing. You don't wait for things to happen. You make sure that what needs to happen happens. You give all the credit. You take all the blame, all those things about just really being invested in success the way that a mother is to her child, and taking responsibility for outcomes the way a mother is for her child. And I came to actually think of that as like a really progressive thing that he said, that he looked at a young woman, working mother, lawyer, and looked at that as an asset and as a skill set, as opposed to like, she's on the mommy track and let's not give her responsibility. So that was another just wonderful mentorship moment that sticks out in my mind.
What's something that you loved about our agency or that pulled you here to be our cabinet secretary?
The Albuquerque location.
For sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
No, I to be completely honest, I didn't really know that much about Workforce Solutions, but we had partnered with Secretary McCamley when I was at the city of Albuquerque. Our civil rights office partnered with this office in a wage theft case. And before that, I didn't realize that this department did that kind of work. But that was, obviously amazing and gave me really good connection to the department. And then just seeing what everyone went through during the pandemic, it was just a tough time for this department because the benefits exploded. I think they had tenfold the amount of benefit dollars coming through the department in the first year of the pandemic, and then that doubled in the second year. And so, I do like going places where there are things that need help, and you don't want to go. I don't want to go to a place where my skill set isn't necessary. And so I did feel like, okay, there's enough here that they're still coming through all that pandemic stuff, and also doing a lot of really great positive work that might be a good fit.
No, but you're saying something that's unique because the pandemic, we've never seen something like this. So it created a sense of leadership. It created a sense of just employees for the future. It created so much. But I want to touch on something you said about leader. What is the biggest values you feel a leader should have, no matter what the situation was, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's don't feel that they don't have the right mentor in place? What do you think is the biggest value somebody could take to be that leader?
I think being a listen first type of leader is usually more successful. And then also knowing what your true north is. And we did at the city, we reflected on that a lot, especially during the pandemic. And my true north is always you help the most vulnerable people first. And by doing that, you're helping everyone. Because if you can reach those folks where they're at, then you've automatically made your circle big enough to catch everybody. And that became really important during the pandemic, even in the decision of, do we keep open things or do we close them? Childcare was a big one. Do we want to keep our childcare centers open or do we want to close them? When you look at it through the lens of helping the most vulnerable people, that is a 2-second conversation. You got to keep them open and you got to keep them free. And that's what we did. So it's almost like the value is being driven by your values, whatever those are. When there's so many decisions to make, you need a rule of thumb. And if you don't have a different one, it's going to be fear. That's our brain's backup decision maker. If you don't have another value that's stronger that you keep reinforcing, then that's where your decisions are going to come from.
When you were considering taking a cabinet secretary position, first of all, did you have an understanding of this is what the job entails, or did you have an idea of it? And then when you got here, did it match up with what you thought it would be?
I think I had a pretty good idea of it because my previous job was the chief administrative officer of the city, which is sort of analogous to the governor's chief of staff. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I know what my department directors did at the city, and being a cabinet secretary is just sort of that, but for the state. And I still just try to be the kind of secretary that I would have wanted to have as a department director. That's sort of my the best guidance I have. So I think I was pretty well prepared for it.
Yeah. And I totally picked up on your style that you just mentioned, because when you got here, I could tell that you're doing a lot of just listening and absorbing the information before we were making decisions and moving forward, which I think is really important to just kind of understand where are we at as I'm coming into here. And then I'm clearly seeing the avenues of where we need to hit first or whatever. So.
What I didn't really factor into was the fact that I was going to have to sit across from people like you who have 20 plus years of experience. And, when we went to the city, we were new administration. So there were 30 of us. And I got here and it was I was the new kid and the only new kid. And everybody here has, such a wealth of experience. Our deputy's been here 30 years, and not even just the long timers in this department, but the other leadership team. And so I was not quite prepared for how much of a new kid I was going to feel like. And I think if I ever do it again, I'm going to ask for them to make a old school, what we used to call a Facebook before Facebook was Facebook. Of just a picture book of people.
Oh, sure. We need a yearbook.
We need a yearbook so badly because it's really hard to come into a department of 600 people. And, you want to I want to just have the USB that goes in my brain to just download all the names, and then I can be nice to everybody. But but that I did not anticipate what it would be like being the only person coming in new.
For sure. And I think it kind of goes to when you're in that position, there's also an aspect of peer-to-peer mentorship, because it's like your counterpart at other agencies. It's probably nice to talk with them. Or I know for myself, when I'm talking to other PAs, it's really nice to have someone to relate to or bounce ideas off of or whatever. Have you experienced that as well?
Absolutely. And that was another, great thing about having come from the city. We worked with the state a lot. So, former Secretary Grace, I worked with a lot, former Chief of Staff Matt Garcia, and then certainly the current leadership team. Some of them I had even worked with at the city. And then they had gone to join the governor's office. Alicia Keys had been my film office director when I was at the city, and then she became the economic development secretary. So I was actually less of a new kid in the cabinet than I was in the department, because I didn't know anyone here except David Chenet, our old AmeriCorps director. But I knew most of the other secretaries. So I was, again, fortunate to have a lot of people that I could call and say, Lynn Trujillo, they were people I'd known for years, and I could call and be like, how does this work? And what are we supposed to say when we go around the table? And all those new key questions.
For sure. So if you were explaining to somebody that doesn't know anything about a cabinet secretary, what does that mean? What would you give them as a definition?
I would say you're sort of the CEO of a department, which means that you're in charge of sort of the vision, the implementation, and making the governor's vision of what your department should be doing come to life. And it's, to me, these jobs are much more about being able to move the pieces of the machine, money, people, ideas, values, and make those work in harmony and work better than it is about any particular content. And I think every cabinet secretary has that job that I just discussed. And then every cabinet secretary has a different specific set of goals, whether that is, cleaning up pollution or increasing the number of businesses that come to our state, or improving relations with our Indian tribes, pueblos, and nations. Those are all those specific goals. But for every secretary, the job is make government work for the people.
We're going to move into rapid, not so rapid questions.
Got it. I'm
ready?
I'm ready.
Best interview advice you've ever received?
Come prepared with questions. It always breaks my heart at the end of an interview when I say, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, nope.
I know.
I mean, if you don't want the job, then absolutely just get out of the room. But if you do, please ask a question. And there are some easy questions like, what do you think would make someone successful in this job? Always a great question. What do you love about your job? Everybody likes to talk about themselves, so that is always a home run.
Favorite movie?
Goodfellas and Elf, especially this time of year. It's Goodfellas season now. I'm just kidding. It's Elf season.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you describe your job using only emojis?
I'm going to say happy emoji, and then the eyes with no mouth emoji. That's one of my favorites. And mountain emoji, because it's sort of like we always have lots of things to do and new horizons. I love the 100%, the 100 emoji, and I think people here really bring their A game. They bring 100% to their jobs here. It's one of the things I love about this department. My other, probably, if you looked at my most common emojis, is brown fairy princess. And I think we all have to bring, the stuff we do here. It's a lot. And sometimes you have to bring your fairy princess self out and just make things happen.
Okay, Gavin, last question.
All right, last question. It's got to be red or green.
I want to say Christmas because I know that there's actually a right answer to that question. And just last night at the pantry in Santa Fe, I had Christmas. But at home, I'm a red girl.
Well, I get you. I'm a green. What about you, Stacey?
I'm a nun. But I just learned a tip from John.
You're a no chili. You're not a nun.
To just, yeah, they always ask me twice. When I say none for me, they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm so sorry. I learned today that maybe I should just start asking it for on the side and gradually build my tolerance up, just barely dip the fork in maybe. And then go from there. But I'm a nun.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Good advice.
And
Good mentor.
You can give it away. to somebody else at
You
the
know, I
table
should.
too. So then
I feel
you're
really,
not
yeah,
wasting.
maybe I'll do that. So then I don't feel like I'm being judged so harsh of like, are you sure none? And it's like, yes, I was born here. I'm so sorry. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me, and thank you guys for doing this podcast. It's something I talk about all the time for our department. I think it was your idea, Stacy. It was a great one, and hopefully our listenership continues to grow and people go back and hear all the fabulous episodes. I cried during the bus driver one.
Oh, I know.
So yeah, if anybody is listening to this who hasn't gone back and listened from the beginning, I want to encourage them to do that because you guys do a great job with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This has been a New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions production. Our producer is Milo Koleski. This episode was engineered and mixed by John Sloan. Theme music is One Fine Day, courtesy of podcast.co. Follow the show on social media at GoodJobNM. For program funding, visit our website, dws.state.nm.us/funding. Bye.